Nostalgia Street invites you on a retro ride that's more than just a trip down memory lane.
Uncover life lessons and personal growth stories that stem from our collective past.
So you can live a richer, more connected life today.
Whether you're a 90s kid, an 80s teen, or simply young at heart, you'll find something to relate to in each episode.
Now, here are your hosts, Vince and Jeff. Welcome back to another episode of Nostalgia Street, where we share the stories that shape us. Those SH has always messed me up. Today, we are honored to have a special guest, Karla. We'll leave her name on the down low for now. And as always, Vince is going to start us off with a fun question.
So, Karla, we recently found out that you are a champion tennis player. So, we would like to know, who is the most intimidating doubles team you could put together using fictional people, fictional characters, and then who would you pick as your partner to play against that doubles team?
This is an incredibly difficult question to start with. You should have prepped me for this. I mean, anybody's going to have a tough time beating me. No, just kidding.
Well, that's why I want you to put together the toughest doubles team to play against you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, obviously there's the classics like Mack and Roe, and nostalgia. Is that a word? Nostalgia.
Well, now it is.
Now it is.
Yeah,
We've coined
sorry.
it nostalgia.
Nostalgia. There you go. Andre Agassi. Remember back in the day, the 80s, 90s? He was like long-haired and beautiful. I will bring him back out of retirement and play with him because that will fulfill like a childhood dream of mine.
Okay.
As far as who we play, I want to win, so I'm going to pick two really bad players, just random people out of the stands.
Fat Albert.
Yeah.
I'd play against Fat Albert because he can't get around very well.
Something like that, yeah.
And that guy that had that big bucket head pumpkin thing. Abadoo-ba-dabadoo-ba-doo.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
Remember that, dude?
I do now.
I don't remember his name, but he was the thing. All right. Well, if you haven't guessed by now, for those of you who are on the audio portion, if you are on the audio portion, you should check us out on YouTube because then you get to see our guest ahead of time. But we are blessed with Karla Santi, founder of Blend Interactive. And we'll talk a lot more about Blend in a second. But let's kick her off with something we talked about just before we got on the air. So you apparently are like a lot of us and really enjoyed some games when you were younger. So what were some of those favorites that you like to dig into?
I did. I think I was ahead of the times because before there were really consoles, there was the Atom computer.
Programming simple.
Sure.
Try it this way.
Now, command the powers of Atom, the complete 80K computer system all in one package.
I got it.
So I will disclose that I am almost 48 years old in a couple weeks. So I'm a child of the 70s and 80s, I guess. But when that came out was the 80s. So my first computer was an Atom computer, and it did have the ability to play games. So I played, I think the first game it shipped with was called Buck Rogers, and it was on cassette. And the Atom computer was so revolutionary that you could actually plug in expansion modules to it. So we had a ColecoVision expansion module that went into that. So the ColecoVision was one of the first consoles that had, some of our tried and tested first games like Donkey Kong and some of those really fun ones. Yeah. And then, because apparently I was spoiled, we had the Atari expansion module, which went into the ColecoVision. So if you can imagine like the size of computers back in the day, it was like the whole desk was like computer. And then I don't even know what we played with. It might have been a joystick.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy, but I think I fell in love with gaming way back when. I've always been pretty independent, so I would disappear into the basement and play for hours. And now I have a son who's in college, and I get frustrated with him, and I'm like, oh, wait, I did that. You got that from me. So I started really early on.
So that makes me think of War Games. Do you remember that with Matthew Broderick?
Yeah.
Back in the day?
Uh-huh.
And then, we had those big, there was cassettes, but then we had those big ass floppy disks that were I forget, like 7 or 8 inches.
There were bigger floppy disks than the regular floppy disks.
Well,
there was granddaddy floppy disk.
So you had the small one, then you had the 5-inch one, and then you had one that was even bigger.
10 or 8 or It
was massive.
You were gonna make me feel extremely old.
Well, that makes I'm older, so
I don't feel old. But then when we talk about like the way life was when we were kids, like wow. Things have really changed. Yeah. And then I really feel old.
Well, somebody recently said before the internet, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, now I know what my parents feel like if it's before the 8-track tape or whatever. Wow, that was a long time.
Vinyl.
So what were the things that you could do on the Atom computer besides play games?
I think it had very, very simple word processing. I'm sure that it did not help you spell check
Right,
or
I was just gonna
anything.
say, yeah.
It was maybe like an upgraded electronic typewriter, which I actually used in high school. So when I was going through high school, I still typed papers by hand
Yeah.
on an electronic typewriter. And because apparently, again, I was spoiled, ours had built-in correction tape.
Yeah, I remember those.
So it covered with white.
Wait, so
I
there was
know,
like
Vince,
whiteout.
Vince, this is so cute because you're like, what?
What is this?
He's like, what's a typewriter?
I know what a typewriter is, but
Well, now you
correction
put
tape?
them on like not okay. Electronic typewriters aren't cool looking either. They were like
Yeah.
ugly and
Boxy.
plastic, but you had to actually press a key and it like imprinted a character
Yeah.
on a piece of paper. And if you made a mistake, you couldn't hit delete. You had your delete was built-in white out correction tape that put the same character in
Yeah.
the same spot with white. And there you go.
And remember typing papers in school. And I mean, I had to use whiteout. We had the cartridges where you
Yeah.
need to take that little plastic film and click on the key, and your papers always look like crap if you're a horrible typist. But
Yeah. I see
got
why you're
by.
doing this podcast because it's all about teaching Vince
It's
like,
education.
how good he has it in life.
I'm
Really.
a history teacher, and this is my clandestine way of teaching Vince how
time
history.
capsule.
Yeah.
I learned who Lauren, what's his name?
Lawrence
Welch.
It was
Lawrence
hilarious.
Welk.
We were talking about Lawrence Welk. I'm
Yes.
like, he doesn't know who that is. He's like, who, Welch? I'm like, no, it's Lawrence Welk.
Welch's
We're like,
grape
you know the
juice.
bubbles? He had no idea.
I actually don't know who that is either.
What?
Thank you.
The Bubbles? Is
Lawrence
that on the
Welk?
Lawrence Welk show?
Yeah, they always
My
had
grandma
Bubbles at
used
the
to
end.
watch that, and I kind of tried hard to ignore when it was on. It was not my jam.
Well, it was, yeah. My grandparents always put that on. I'll have to admit that. So what were the TV shows, the go-tos that you enjoyed growing up?
Well, I grew up in a town, Owatonna, Minnesota, and our house didn't have cable. So I say I was spoiled, but I wasn't. We had an antenna, which allowed us to get Minneapolis TV stations. So we had like 4 total. It was like your 3 major and then PBS, much like a previous guest of yours was talking about. Like
Yeah.
we could rotate our antenna and maybe get another channel. So I had to like get up off the couch, like go rotate like inside. Thankfully, I didn't rotate the antenna on the roof, but there was like a thing that connected to the antenna that you could turn like north south.
Yeah.
And up on the roof, fancy, it would turn automatically. So then you get on a clear day another channel. So I grew up watching a lot of what was on, right?
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was very limited. And so my mom was a soap opera person. She
Okay.
watched Days of Our Lives every day,
Yep.
And the problem was Sesame Street was on at the same time. So she was a really good
conflict.
mom because she split the hour. I would watch the first half of Sesame Street and she would get the second half of Days of Our Lives. Because really, like, you didn't miss anything in the first half anyway. They're
never.
just, you could pretty much assume what happened. So I watched a lot of Sesame Street. I brought some of my faves from when I was a kid along with me, Kermit the Frog. Otherwise, it was like Scooby-Doo, whatever was on for cartoons, Smurfs. I remember waking up Saturday mornings was like cartoon morning.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
like when you got the kids shows.
That was the best.
yeah, I
They still have that.
remember.
You missed out.
No, they had that in the 90s.
Yeah. My favorite show was, well, there's 2 of them, Kids Incorporated, which was a song about, it was a show about these kids that would perform in this nightclub. And so they were singers, but Sarah Ferguson was one of the stars, and that
wow.
is Fergie. So she was on that. Martika, I don't know if you remember her, Toy Soldiers.
Yep.
She was on that show. So there's actually, there was a lot of little breakout stars that came out of this show, but they did covers of songs, and I just loved that. And then after that show, there was a drawing show, and it was called The Lost City. And I remember there was this big wall, and at the end of every show, they would take, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes, I suppose, like expanding on the city. And it was this 3-dimensional drawing kind of style that was easy to learn and replicate, and you could make these 3-dimensional cities. So I just remember learning like, ooh, I could make this chimney look this different way. And so I would constantly doodle things that I learned on the show. And like, I would always have these big cities drawn because I learned so much from that.
Yeah.
So, back then we didn't have the internet. You didn't learn artistic styles or anything unless you saw it on TV. Of course, Bob Ross was a fave of mine too. Still is.
Happy
But I
little
think,
trees.
yeah, so I think we watched TV as both entertainment and educational back then.
I love how you said, get off the couch and change the channel.
I know.
I mean, I was the remote control in the family.
Yeah.
Mom would always say, Jeff, go change it over.
Well, I remember we got, I think it was before the VCR, there was something. I forgot what it was called. Beta.
Yeah, Betamax.
We had a Betamax.
Yeah.
And it came with a remote control, but it had an extension cord, like a 25-foot extension
Really?
cord, and it
Oh,
ran
wow.
across the living room. Yeah, it was real fancy.
Real fancy.
No batteries then.
Play jump
batteries.
rope with it.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. So we've got this school. So what were some of the did you do any naughty things when you were in school?
In school?
Yeah.
What?
Oh, I like how she
just
said
in
that.
that general
Like, yeah,
general
yeah.
time period.
We don't mean to categorize her.
No,
or-
that's fine.
I like that in school. Oh.
I wasn't a troublemaker. I never got caught.
Therein lies the difference.
Yes. Yes.
You don't get caught.
Were you an instigator?
Maybe.
Maybe.
But first of all, my mom was a teacher, so I was, Miss Engbard's daughter, and of course I wouldn't do anything wrong. So in the times when I almost got busted, even in high school, I broke a rule and I brought a boombox to the commons area, and I was playing music, and I got called to the principal's office, and
So hip.
I know, such
footloose.
shoulder. But the principal's daughter was in my dance class. I also taught dance class. So he knew me.
wow.
And so I'm like, I have my boombox because we have rehearsal in the auditorium after school today for our recital. And he's like, oh, that's right. I forgot. Okay, bye. And so, but I think I was able to kind of talk my way out of anything naughty. I would say that I didn't do anything terrible. Like I was a pretty good kid.
Yeah.
I was good at not getting caught at the things I did do. And there's a little thrill to that too. But yeah, I was a good kid.
Is there anything that you did that you would to this day would not tell your parents or admit to?
Well, yes, there are. We did stupid stuff.
You have to tell us on
No,
air,
that's
but-
fine. That's fine. This is a good lesson learned, but the things you do in high school are, you don't think about like the consequences of like, oh, I could have died. And I remember hopping in the back of a pickup truck and standing, and you would like surf.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then like the driver was my friend, and he was like going in and out of ditches. And like we're
Jeez.
standing in the back of this pickup truck. I'm like, who does that? We literally could have died because we were going fairly fast. So now looking back as an adult, you think about your kids doing something like that and just think like that was the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
And
That's not your friend.
yeah, my parents have both passed, so now they're like listening. I'm like, sorry, sorry, I was a good kid. But yeah, they didn't get in trouble.
So when you were younger, what was it that you wanted to be as you got older?
I always thought I would be an art teacher.
Really?
I think because my mom was a teacher, and
Was
my
she our teacher? Just a teacher.
She was just a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, elementary school teacher. And so I grew up with a mom with a teacher. My sister wanted to be a teacher, and like in our house we had teaching supplies and like art stuff, like stencils. We had a craft closet at the end of the closet. I was just surrounded with like creativity and assumed that one way that I could use that would be to teach art. And it was, of course, my favorite class. I loved art class. I'm a designer. So that's where I saw myself early on. I think as I grew up, I realized I really don't like kids, and I'm not an educator. I also knew that I couldn't make a living drawing and painting, likely, like not the lifestyle that I would want for myself. So that led me to study graphic design. So when you're in high school, they have like the guidance counselor gives you the catalog of all the different majors you can study, and you almost just like look through it like a JCPenney catalog, like, oh, that sounds interesting. What do I want to do with my life? And like you pick a direction out of a catalog back then.
Yeah.
And graphic design was something pretty new to me. It was new in general as a digital media form in 1994.
Was that influenced by the Lost Cities and all the drawings that you were doing as a kid?
Yeah, I think so. I knew that I wanted to use my talent in some way that would allow me to have a career and a profession, not just a fine artist. But I remember in 5th grade, my art teacher, Mr. Sikora, who also ended up being my high school art teacher, by the way. But 5th grade, he pulled me aside and he's like, you know, you're really good. And I think it was the first time besides like your mom or whatever, like, oh, isn't that pretty? Like, you know, I knew that, but to have him like actually call me out and say like, you have talent. He put me in an after school club called the Young Picassos.
Okay.
And that's where I first got introduced to like, he'd have artists come in and teach you like different mediums and acrylic paints. Like you weren't allowed to use acrylic paints in elementary school because it like, you know, doesn't come out of your clothes. So a lot of new media that I was introduced to and just loved it.
So who are some of your or maybe still are some of your favorite artists that have influenced?
It's tough. I really love simplicity now. Of course, I like some of the classics, like Monet's style, obviously, with the pointillism and stuff is just so unique.
Yep.
So I studied art history, so I have a depth of knowledge about all of the styles and artists that came before me. But I think now I'm just really drawn to really minimalistic things, really simple, like even like patterns and dots.
Yeah.
I think there's just, I like calm, and we live in a world of chaos.
Yeah, we do. What about Salvador Dali? What'd you think about him? He was my fave, obviously.
Really?
Let's throw him out there.
It's a little out there for me.
He's way
Still
out
out there.
Yeah.
He's way out
Fascinating
there.
to look at, though.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is I like to, well, I'm no art critic, but there's just so much in any of his stuff. You're looking and you keep looking and, oh, there's the ants and then there's this and then there's this and there's this. And then you look into his biography. He was a little bit of a out there kind of a guy.
I think many of the greatest artists are, right?
Yeah.
Geniuses in general, like they were not necessarily sane people. And so like we idolize them now, but if we were living beside them, we would think that they were odd.
Especially with our modern knowledge
Yes.
and
Super odd.
tendencies.
We'll be right back.
So where did the love of tennis come from?
It was a sport that I played from when I was a little kid. It was a summer sport, had community lessons, so I just learned at a young age how to play. I've always been a better doubles player. I love kind of working with the team. I still do today. As a leader. And so I learned early on and played in high school, ended up going to state, went to college. I went to a college without a tennis team, but it was a NCAA Division II school. I went to Morningside College at the time. Now it's university. And they decided to spin up a tennis team. And so I think it was my junior year, I get a call like, Karla, you used to play tennis, didn't you? I'm like, yeah, I haven't touched my racket in like 2 years. And they're like, but you were okay, right? And I'm like, yeah, I was. And they're like, well, we'd like to offer you a scholarship to play on our team. I'm like, okay. So I did play at the collegiate level and did quite well. I held records for quite some time. I think they just got beat, which is a bummer. But yeah, I've stuck with it. I did take a break. I had a couple kids, and the thought of like belonging to a tennis league just wasn't. Started a business, and that kind of took over my entire life. And I started a business when I had a kid, so it's like, well, that's all I could have time for. But later in life, like 15-year gap, I picked up my racket again and started playing. And I not only enjoy playing tennis, but I met some really lovely friends out of it that are also professionals like me. So now we try to play year-round. Obviously, here in South Dakota, we have to play indoors part of the year, but we do play in the summer league all summer, every Wednesday night. And this year I was undefeated. So
Nice.
that's
Look
why
at
I get to
you.
say tennis champ, because I still
Well,
Got it.
you're a multiple champ in other things too. Like, have you always been competitive?
Yes.
I mean, Dancing with the Stars, Sioux Falls Stars winner here as well.
This is true. That one about killed me. But so yes, I am this. I am always a Sioux Falls Dancing with the Stars champion from 2016, I believe. But it was really the first time that I was being judged. Like if you're on a tennis court, you are playing to win. There's other aspects of the game that allow you to win or lose. Dancing with the Stars, you are legitimately performing in front of a panel of judges who then hold up a score.
Yeah.
And I can't remember as an adult the last time someone literally judged me in that way. And it was actually quite stressful.
Yeah, I
because
bet.
I am competitive and I wanted to do a good job. And here I am like dancing in point shoes with a ball gown on in front of like all of my colleagues and friends. And they didn't know that version of me. I used to dance as well from when I was a little kid. And then I took adult ballet lessons as well. I stopped at COVID, but need to get back to it. But so I am a dancer as well. So to have people see me in that role was almost, I was a little nervous, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So when you were kind of that either that high school or college age, is there any kind of a life lesson or an experience that you went through, and every once in a while you just think about it and go, yeah, I mean, maybe it sucked at the time, but I'm glad I went through that.
So in high school or college,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of those as adults.
We'll get to those eventually.
Yeah. Things happen that are out of your control that definitely shape the trajectory of your life and also form kind of your personality in some ways. So I would say that between a few experiences in college and then even growing up as a kid, I had red hair and freckles, and I got picked on nonstop. Even though I wasn't unpopular, I think I was just an easy target because I was different. And back in the day, like, it wasn't cool to have freckles and it wasn't cool to have red hair. Now people like literally tattoo freckles on their face. But back then it was a very different time. So I felt like I was always kind of right outside of the cool club and never in it, which probably fueled that competitiveness and like wanting to prove myself, and probably still have a little bit of that today to be like, hey, I'm in the cool club, right? Am I there
in the
yet?
cool club.
How many more things do I need to do to prove it to you? So I think just being treated that way growing up definitely molded an aspect of me.
Yeah. So peer pressure was something big when I was growing up, and I don't even know, I guess at some point it phases out, but did you go through that time frame where peer pressure, like what you're wearing, and well, basically they pick on anything. Do you smoke? Do you not smoke? Do you drink?
I would say the fashion aspect and what brands you were wearing was an aspect of my childhood for sure. Do you have Guess jeans? Do you have Jabot jeans?
Yep.
You're like, what is that?
Cavaricci?
Yeah, Zeke.
There's a new one?
Yeah.
Private school, khakis and polos.
Yeah.
Khakis and polos.
But as far
Catholic
as
fashion.
like other peer pressure to do things I didn't want to, no, I didn't. I think our school system was so strict on if you got caught doing anything, you were off the team. And so if I played tennis, so I didn't drink until after high school. I didn't smoke. I didn't do any of those things because I didn't want to lose my spot on the team.
Yeah.
Because you would.
Yeah.
So they kind of like gave the fear in you to like not make those choices.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, I was able to avoid peer pressure when it came to life decisions like that. Definitely always a challenge to try to fit in, to have the latest and greatest thing, and, you know, to look like you're the rest of everyone. So I think, unfortunately, it's still a little bit like that today.
So what I'm hearing is there that gap period of time when you're a freshman and sophomore in college when you didn't play tennis, there was no tennis team. You were like free reins then because there was nothing to be held over your head. So are there any hijinks we can share from that time?
You know what happened to me? It was the weirdest thing. So I grew up doing ballet since I was 3. Played tennis. I was very athletic. Like when we were kids, like we rode bikes because that's what we did. So super athletic and in shape. And I got to college and I didn't do the freshman 15. I didn't put on a whole bunch of weight. Yeah. But what happened is I didn't use my body in the same way anymore. And I got clumsy. Like I would like trip over myself. And I literally remember like walking on this like concrete wall that was only like 3 feet off the ground or something. And I couldn't like stay on it. I'm like, what is going on? But I went through this transition where like, because I walked away from all of that physical activity and essentially did nothing.
Yeah.
Like my body changed and
rebelled.
it didn't feel like me. And so I actually learned that. And then I started teaching like aerobics class at college. And then I got put on the tennis team and it came back. But
Stella got her groove back.
man, that was not fun.
Wow.
Clumsy. Ugh. It's not.
I guess I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Probably.
Now you learn
Happens to
something.
everybody.
I did the same thing teaching. I didn't teach aerobics in college, but I taught group fitness.
Yeah.
Very similar. Just
Well, it would be the same thing. I taught like step class. Remember that was the thing?
I taught Zumba, which is like
Ooh.
Jazzercise 2.0,
yeah.
basically.
Wow. That's cool. Real cool.
Sort
of.
I need some video evidence of that.
Oh,
Wow.
that's for the exclusive subscription.
Did you wear like fluorescent clothing?
I actually, there's a whole, my promotional photos, I have like the whole like really long baggy pants with one leg rolled up, like the racerback tank top.
Yes.
I'll show you later. And then,
Sweet.
You wear a bandana?
yeah, I had a bandana like there,
Yeah.
one on my arm, and then I had tassels
What?
like on the pants, so like they would move.
This is fascinating. You should host
Oh,
a
my
class.
Yeah, we
Just
got
for
space.
fun.
We got space.
We
in
do
there.
Yeah,
that.
you could do it here in your new space. Yeah, why not?
Need a team building activity? I got you.
Yeah, yeah. So
We are learning how to play pickleball on Friday.
I was gonna ask you that was the
Yeah.
other question. That's cousins to tennis, right?
Well, I don't know because I play tennis. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're going to be so good at pickleball." But part of me, as a tennis player, it's like you only use part of the court, and it's like a wiffle ball. I'm like, is this really a sport? And now it's like taking off. It's like the thing to do. Even the tennis stars are playing pickleball. So now I feel like I need to learn how to play. So we are going to the club. The head of the tennis at Country Club of Sioux Falls is going to teach us how to play on Friday. My whole team. We're going
Interesting.
to learn. But that's what we do is like we learn how to do stuff and make fools of ourselves. And that's team building.
But you're going to win,
I will clearly win.
obviously.
But maybe I was just thinking we could do Zumba class, but they may curl up and die. So probably not.
I heard that insurance claims amongst seniors are up because of pickleball.
Yeah. Well,
Isn't that funny?
tennis too, I think that it's a very lateral sport, right? You're going this way and that way and this way and that way. And normal life, we move this way. We walk forward, we sit back. We don't move side to side.
Right.
So now when you have these quick lateral movements, like people are like throwing out their knees and ankles and feet problems and I don't know. So
when would you ever really go side to side in life?
Salsa,
yeah, because we all do
jazzercise.
that.
I don't know.
Jazzercise class. Just kidding.
I do not do this when I eat salsa. I don't know what you're talking about. Jeez. We'll be right back. So when you were in college, was that was your major in graphic design?
It was. So I chose Morningside College because at the time, 1994, they were one of the most technically advanced campuses because of their correlation and relationship with Gateway that was located in Sioux City, Iowa. And so every student got their own computer in their dorm room, which was unheard of back then.
Yeah.
I upgraded mine, so I got a Mac. It was Power Mac 4100, 3100, something like that, a big piece of machine.
Yeah.
And there was an entire Mac lab for graphic design, which wasn't the case when I was looking at different schools. The graphic design department like shared one computer in the library that you had to check out for an hour at a time. And so that wasn't my idea of what I was going for. So yeah, I went to Morningside College in Sioux City because they were ahead of the time, which was really bizarre. So I learned graphic design. 1994, of course, the internet's not really quite there. We
Right.
were learning how to message on a platform called Gopher, and it was very text-based. By the time I was a junior and needed to do a internship, an opportunity came along from my roommate Sarah's uncle Brian worked at a place, and I was able to get an internship at a web interactive firm doing websites and interactive CD-ROMs. So this was like 1996, 1997.
Do you know what a CD-ROM is?
Dude, I'd be 6. We had
Okay. Just checking.
Whatever.
games on CD-ROMs.
That's true. That's true.
What does ROM stand
Random, I don't know, something
ROM.
memory. Read-only memory.
Boom! Boom.
There
All
you go.
right, score.
Circular disc,
You get to
read-only
teach
memory.
things in
Is
the
that
class.
it?
I'm gonna go. I don't remember the CD part,
What's
but
the,
that
what's
sounds.
the CD part?
Compact disc.
Oh.
Oh yeah,
I
maybe.
said circular disc. All discs are circular.
That is technically also correct. It is a circle.
Technically.
But no, I learned how. Well, they didn't teach me how to build websites. They're like, okay, this client needs a website. Build them one.
What's a website?
Yeah, exactly.
And there was no Google. There were no answers. And I learned, but I'm like self-taught on Go Live Cyber Studio, which later was acquired by Adobe, and it became Adobe Go Live. So back then, the web was still a very simplistic graphical place. Essentially, you're building brochures online for organizations and people. And so it was just a new medium to design on. And because it was so visual, you could just do the coolest stuff. And I think our first websites that we ever launched were very graphical, and our goal was to make them unique. So back then we also had Flash with animation and sound, and the intro video or intro screen.
Yeah.
What is that? What you call
Yeah, I think intro.
The intro to your website. Like it would play like this flash animation before you even got to the content. And then when you got to the content, like, of course, the navigation had to be different on every website, and it flew out of this thing, or you clicked on this and this thing happened. And so it was kind of like this experience. Every website was different, and there was no uniform rules to follow. So it was very exciting to see your designs come to life and have people interact with them. And so I really just fell in love with that medium.
Yeah.
And I never did print. Like I do some print right now as a trade out, just like for my daughter's dance company and stuff, but I never did print. I just love interactive, and I love the fact that it's ever changing. And if you make a mistake, you just upload a new copy, and it's just very forgiving and fun. Fast forward many, many years now, it's a very different place. Like we are very concerned with accessibility and performance, and nobody wants to click 5 times to get to their content. How can we make things as streamlined and uniform and usable as possible to create those great experiences? So where I started in those first websites that I built are just so different than what I did today or what I do today. I don't even build websites today. Now I run a company that does that. But there was a transition point, and I don't want to talk too much about work right now, but it became less artistic and it became more technical. And that was really the turning point of when I decided to start my company, Blend Interactive.
Interesting. So when you started off with Blend, what was the vision? Where did you want to go, and where'd you want to take things?
Okay, so I had been building websites on my own as a solo entrepreneur. Santi Interactive was the company, really clever. And I didn't have any. I had a freelance backend developer at the time, so it's just really us two. I did the design. I had clients. As an entrepreneur, you're like the bookkeeper, the salesperson, the designer, all of the people, right? And then I had outsourced my back-end development. He ended up taking a full-time job somewhere, and I lost my developer. And I had met my business partners, Dean and Joe, at the time through a mutual client where I did the design and he was my client, and they did the back-end. And we were truly a blend of both design and development, which wasn't common back in 2005. You still either had a really beautiful website that didn't function, or you had, like what they were building is really great websites that maybe didn't have the polish or design. So we needed each other. They were going through some changes with their full-time jobs. They were just kind of moonlighting, building websites, as a lot of people did. And I obviously needed a dev team. So we partnered. I think at the time, to answer your question, our goal was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could build websites for a living? Like has real jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like even if this just works for a year, maybe we'll have to go get a job later. And turns out we were really good, and word of mouth spread, and like opportunities just kept coming in, and more clients and more work. And then it got to the point where like, we can't keep up with all this work. We're not sleeping. It's just too much. So what do we do? Well, then things got real, because then it wasn't just us using our talents to do a thing. It was like, now we have to employ someone like this, that's not a partner. And that was really kind of the scariest part when you start a business, is like, oh, this is a real business now. This isn't just us doing what we do best. Like, we're employing someone, our name is on their insurance, or, their car loans, whatever it might be. So you can't mess up, or you shouldn't mess up. So that's when things really got real. And I think for many of those early years, we still felt like, oh, this is fun. Let's try to keep going and stay in business. And we didn't necessarily have a shared long-term vision, because wouldn't it be a good problem to have if we had to worry about the future?
Yeah.
But there became a turning point where it's like, this is working, and we need to mature and grow up and really look at what this company is and what we want to be when we grew up. And that's evolved throughout the years, but we definitely were missing a shared vision for the future. And now we have that.
Interesting. So who did you look to for either mentors or examples of the kind of business model, or, like, who are some of the people that they kind of helped you get out of those pitfalls that maybe you fell into, like most businesses when they're starting off?
I think online I had some pie in the sky, would love to be like companies that I followed, and I kind of watched the type of work that they were putting out. So design wise, I had some agencies that I was just really impressed by, that I kind of watched them and what they did. Even in town here, Electric Pulp started a few years before us, and 98, maybe 96. And so I really looked at their work and was just really blown away by the talent here in our area. So I kept an eye on what people were doing in the industry. But then when it came time to really look at the business side of things, I didn't have a ton of experience with that. I have a degree in graphic design and a minor in business, but it was one of those degrees you like throw on. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a nice add-on. I didn't expect to actually have to use it. So I was lucky enough to have met some agency owners here in the Sioux Falls area that kind of took me under their wing and saw the potential in my business and gave us work and gave me guidance and mentoring. So that was really key in my growth and made me believe, like, oh, we are something special. We're not just winging it. And we were able to provide services for them and our clients in a really high level way.
On the other side of that, is there a story of a pitfall or something that happened in your professional capacity where you've learned from it, and it's kind of like a cautionary tale you sometimes you still share?
Yeah. A couple things. I think going back to how I was saying we were kind of just winging it, like, why we're still in business, I don't know, because like we weren't the best business savvy people. Like, there was money in the bank, so we were doing fine, right? Like, that was the measure of success. And I don't think we treated the company like it should have been. And I'll share this analogy. So I started the company when my son was 9 months old, and he hit puberty, 13, 14. And he started growing like an inch a week, right? Boys just like,
Yeah.
And it dawned on me, like, he's a teenager now, and look at how much he's changing every day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my company is a teenager, and it needs to change. It also needs to go through this evolution of change, or we won't stay in business.
Yeah. So
we implemented EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system. We hired a company to come in and facilitate that. It's essentially a rule book of how to run your company. And instead of randomly meeting, like, we just didn't have structure and process in place. And this gave us the guidebook to follow and say, like, well, no, we can't do that because EOS says we can't, instead of us saying, well, like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So looking back, I should have done that much, much earlier. But I think, when things are good, you don't question what won't work in the future. And because we were doing well financially, I'm like, well, I think we're doing everything right.
Right.
But, we were definitely in a place of no control. Like, we were just reacting to the things that were happening to the company, and we needed to pivot and mature.
So I can tell you a quick funny, I don't know if I've told this to Vince, back in the day, so I used to work at this company called Orion Food Systems, and I was the national brand manager for Hot Stuff Pizza. Well, we didn't have a website. And I thought, we need a website. So Lawrence and Schiller was our agency at the time. And so we were going to go to Lawrence and Schiller, and we were really going to get serious about, grabbing our domain and everything. Well, I'd already done the research, so I kind of knew what to avoid. But when it came time for everybody to throw out different names of things, one of my superiors said, type in hotstuff.com. Let's see if that's taken. Hotstuff.com. And I was literally just like, in the movies. Where they're
Slow motion.
Oh my God.
and for the first time ever, our CFO was there and a few others on leadership that weren't normally there. Like, this is a big deal, the internet. And so before I could, please don't, Asian foot fetishes, and
No.
any kind of bad pop up would that could come up did. And I'm like, you guys, I like manage this brand. You think I couldn't have told you not to go down that? And everybody's like, you had to laugh because it was so embarrassing.
Yeah.
So did you ever any have awkward domain challenges with clients?
Sure. So yeah, blendinteractive.com is our official domain because blend.com was taken and it was similar content. And I
Really?
don't know why they would have
Blend.
associated X-rated content with Blend,
Yeah.
but they held it like for ransom and it was like bazillion dollars and we couldn't buy it.
Yeah.
And then ultimately like a financial services company called Blend came along and they had enough money to throw at it or the person accidentally let it expire or something, which I should have probably paid attention to. But yeah, that was same kind of situation for our domain name. It's really frustrating. Even when you're coming up with a name for your company, you have to kind of look at like what's available because you don't want like blendwebservicesusa.com, like you want to have a nice clean URL that's available or domain name that's available, and that's tough these days.
Yeah, and to find something unlike a pharmaceutical company where it's an X or a Z or you can tell somebody that, but they're like, I don't know how to spell it, and all those challenges. So as a business owner, you've been doing this for a while and very successful. What areas of business do you really like to either mentor or guide other people to do? Like, do you just like to tell them about design or marketing or business in general? Are there any other areas that you just like, God, I just really love talking about that?
I love talking about culture and team. I think that's Blend's special sauce.
Yeah.
We have a really great culture. Anybody at our company can go work for Google. I'm not saying anybody, but like most of the company could work elsewhere, live in Sioux Falls, work remote for a big brand, and they choose to stay and work at our company. So that's one thing that means a lot. I think one of my greatest achievements as an entrepreneur is to have created a business that people are really proud to work at. I mean, that just like makes my heart warm.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that, of course, because we didn't set out to have a team. But now looking back, I love talking about the things that have worked for us and kind of help. You can't like create someone else's culture, but you can guide them to say like, this is something that you might think about doing or allowing your team to do. So the culture kind of grows on its own. But there's no magic formula for creating a good culture. I think in general, Blend is owned 50-50 by myself and Joe Kepley right now. And we have tried really hard to create a place where we want to work.
Yeah.
And like we are, like, for example, we had summer hours. And when summer hours ended last year or the year before, even now, I was really sad. I'm like, oh, we have to work a full Friday. And I'm like, oh wait, we own this company. No, you don't. And so we changed things based on how we want to work. And obviously we have caveats to that. Like, get your work done. Like, we don't want to not please our clients. But for the most part, everybody's out Friday afternoons now. So it's just really cool to talk about like how we can work together. We're a hybrid team now, which is new. So I like talking about what works for us and what doesn't. But all of that is still evolving for not just us. It's really everyone.
Yeah.
I hear you guys have a great like a recognition system. The awards that you guys do.
Oh, the Blendies? or there are values nominations too.
Oh, you have those two?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we have company values and we made them into little tokens. And so every quarter we nominate each other for who's lived out those values. So the goal is that you can collect all the tokens, right? But it is not just something that's on the wall at Blend. It's something that we, really gauge our potential projects and clients against. Like, are they a good fit? Are like in our interview process with employees, we bring up our values. And so we try to really integrate that into our culture. But yeah, we have the Blendies, which, are kind of like the Dundies from The Office. So we have some funny little things to celebrate and unique quirks of our team, but it's always a fun event for us.
That's
That
awesome.
sounds like fun.
So our show is all about, taking that thread from the past, from nostalgia, and bringing it back to the present. So as we close out the show, is there one particular, is it a saying, is it a quote, is it a particular story that, has continued to guide you today?
I just keep going back to thinking about my art teacher in 5th grade that kind of pushed me a little bit and made me aware of talent. And that's something that I have seen throughout my entire career. Like, even as I started my business, there were some agency owners, like I said, kind of took me under their wing and were like, you're great. Like, let's make this work. And I continue to see that. Sometimes I get pushed or pulled out of my comfort zone because people see things in me or our team that maybe we don't believe in ourselves. And so now that I've achieved the success of what I have, I really feel like it's my turn to do that for the next generation or the next entrepreneur. I do a lot of mentoring because sometimes all it takes is like one person to really say, like, you know what, you are uniquely talented. I am super impressed by you. Why aren't you doing ... Or you should talk to this person. So I think just believing in someone, even just one person, can really change someone's life. And I do think that happened to me throughout my whole career, in multiple people believing in me and really pushing me.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. So the life lesson for today is be sure to recognize somebody at whatever age they are.
For sure.
I recognize you, buddy.
Thanks.
Even though
You
you're
are really
58
talented.
and you don't know Lawrence Welk.
I don't know
But you
what
teach
half the
Zumba.
things that you guys talk about are, but I'm learning.
Yeah.
Good
We are
stuff.
wise beyond our years.
Thank you for sharing that knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, viewers and listeners, for tuning in to another episode of Nostalgia Street. We will plug Karla's contact info and info about Blend at the show notes, so you can check that out. Until then, we'll see you guys next time. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you're on iTunes, please take a moment and leave us a rating and review.
Head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. You'll get access to engaging visuals that complement our podcast content.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us on our next episode. So until next time, listeners, stay curious, stay engaged.
Never stop walking down Nostalgia Street.